Hello, darlings. Hi, Heather. Good morning. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, there you are. Good morning, sunshine. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Sorry I had to change the time.
It's okay. And if it's just me, I don't want to take your time.
Why? Are you not worthy of my time?
No, yes.
Why do you say
Definitely.
silly things?
But don't you have some offers on a house?
I ended up having 9 total.
That's amazing. Wow.
9 total, and here's the crazy shit. You want to hear what it listed at $399.9, right? Do you want to know what the contract price was?
402.
$425. No appraisal.
What?
Closing costs. No title. No warranty.
What the heck?
What the hell is right? Like, it was insane. I think my seller was shitting his pants.
Didn't I tell you to ask 425?
Well, I wanted to do 425, but honestly, it didn't warrant 425 with the upgrade, like the kitchen.
Right.
It needed new appliances and countertops.
Yeah.
And paint, like,
yeah.
And they didn't want to do any of it. So that's why we listed $399.9, hoping that it would bid up a little bit. We did end up, here's the crazy, you want to talk about like last minute Lucy, like the excitement and thrill part.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you while we're waiting to see if anybody else joins us. But so we ended up obviously with multiple offers, 2 of which had escalation clauses of $1,000 over a highest and best, right? So the highest and best was 412. The best offer was cash for $1,000 over the highest, which would have made it 413, right?
Okay.
But they had a house to sell, but all the contingencies, it was already under contract. It was going to close next Friday. No, nothing else needed to be done. It's already been appraised, everything. So that was the perfect offer for my seller. So we ended up making a counter offer with the new sales price and removing the title insurance for that to be paid by the buyer.
Okay.
We sent the counter offer to the buyer to sign. In the time that the buyers took to sign the counter offer, another offer came in for $425 with no appraisal. So we had to rescind our counter offer because you can withdraw it at any time up until it's accepted, which broke my heart for the other agent. Like, here he was thinking he had a done deal. I've already notified him that we've accepted his offer, except we had a counter offer. I didn't say we accepted, that we're going to work with your offer. And, you know, in the time that it took his clients to sign it, they lost it. And in the meantime, my seller made $13,000 more money. Wow. And is as happy as a lark. I mean, like, so happy. So
he'll be giving you rave reviews on
I told him, I was like, I want every one of your reviews, by the way, give them all to me, you know, so I want all the referrals. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's just kind of nuts. Hi, Andrea. Good morning.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
This is Heather, if you haven't met yet, but you will love her, I promise. You guys will love each other, I'm sure. I was just sharing with Heather my crazy story of our multiple offer negotiations from yesterday. So it ended out great for my sellers, but it was a last minute, like, crazy, someone slid in at the last minute through a counter offer, and it netted my seller an extra $13,000. So
yeah, you can't turn that down.
What can you do, you know? So I don't know who else is going to join us, so we'll just catch up. How are you guys doing? Like, Andrea, what's new? You and I are going to chat later, but
so I did a webinar yesterday with what's it called? Oh my gosh. Well, I can't even think of Reminder Media.
Oh, okay. I like Reminder Media a lot. They have a lot of, you know, products that I think are cool.
Actually did a couple of webinars yesterday, and it's amazing how much time, you take with these webinars sitting in front of the computer. And
I know it makes the days really long, especially if you've done 4 or 5 back to back to back. I try not to schedule them like that. I try to do one a day because there's always one out there, but at least one that I'm taking and absorbing for myself versus giving, because I'm doing a lot of one-on-ones and stuff. But at least the taking more than one a day for me is a little too much. So, Heather, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I had a really good call with Candace last week, and she told me about Ricky Carruth.
Yep.
And so I've listened to a couple of his things, and that's really inspiring. And she also recommended me writing down what I'm doing every day. So for you to just tell you, I really like what you sent us about the 5, that big long 21, but I went through it, and so many great ideas.
5 notes a day, 5 calls.
Yeah, so it's 5 notes, 5 calls, 5 texts, 5. And so I've been just that kind of keeps you,
It gives you, I think it gives you kind of some accountability and gives you a reason to okay, at the end of the day, I want to put my head on the pillow and say I've done X, Y, and Z. We're creatures of habit, of where we like to make to-do lists for ourselves of this grandiose plans that we have of all the stuff that we want to do. And a lot of times, because they're not pertinent, high value activities that make us money right now, we kind of put them on the back burner. And then sometimes they just don't ever get done, or they slide 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, what did I actually accomplish today? So I think it's a small bite-sized chunk that you could do. And if you did that every day, habitually, I mean, at a minimum, you're contacting 25 people a week, just if you only did 5. But if it's 5 calls, 5 texts, 5 emails, think about the number of people it's forcing you to reach out to. So I love it. I think it was a great tidbit. Of the 21, that was definitely one of my top 3 that I thought, if you even implemented one of these strategies, that would at least force you to talk to people each day. So I love that. And I love writing down what you do every day. So,
and these are my business. I've been going through my business cards gradually. Because I've lived here 23 years. So literally I have cards. I'm like, oh, it's a bad email now, but at least I try, to put them in the database and reach out and hey, I just ran across your card. How are you doing during this tough time? Just trying to reach out to people.
I think that's perfect. And it's natural and organic. It's not a sales pitch. It's, I'm doing some spring cleaning. You came across your business card, came across your Christmas card, whatever the heck it is, I came across your family newsletter from 8 years ago. That's a good tip of oh crap, I haven't talked to people in 8 years, and now all of a sudden I'm gonna start talking to people. That's a good excuse that you can use to say, I mean, where it's natural and organic and it doesn't sound forced or fake, So I think that's a great idea for sure. Hi, Suzanne. Good morning, darling. I don't know if you're unmuted, but I see that
am I?
Hi, you are.
Yay.
You are. We can hear you, but not see you. So either you look super pretty this morning, or you just want to be secret face today.
Oh, I don't mind sharing the beauty, but I don't even know how to start video. Is that what I do?
That's what you click on. That's right. We're all going to be professional Zoom users by the end of this garbage. I never used
no kidding.
I'm so sick of seeing my own face on Zoom that if I see it again, I want to just puke. So,
well, actually, it's got a line through it and it won't let me open it. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So
that's okay. Well, we'll just hear you in case.
Oh, wait a minute. Pull out my camera.
It's all right.
Oh,
there she is. She's on her porch. I love that porch. I would sit out there every damn day if I could.
This is a result of the virus. I mean, I have a fox in my backyard I didn't know I had.
Wow.
And the trees are all blooming. And I don't know.
So I don't know if y'all know, but Suzanne is a master gardener. Beyond a master gardener, but she is a master gardener. But she used to own a landscaping company, and you have never seen a more incredible, amazing backyard as Suzanne's. And
Wow.
I would live out there under the trees every day if I could. So I'm sure it looks amazing and incredible. Since you've been home, you probably had nothing to do
Thank
but
you.
tinker in the wood. But you've been busy.
I
So
don't. Yeah, I have been. I've been busier in this part of my career, this phase I'm in.
I love it.
As yeah, that the thing that I've taken away the most is that you never walk away without a lesson
Yeah,
learned
always.
in any
Well,
situation.
Well,
Mhm.
that's what I love that you guys are here today, because this class is how to show a house. So if y'all don't know how to show a house, we're in trouble, because y'all have been at this for a little bit. So I don't want to repeat basic minor things. Like, it's basically showing property and how to ask questions to gain rapport right away, how to get trust with someone quicker on the front end, and how to guide them through the house with building rapport and trust without following them around and interviewing them and asking 100,000 questions, right? But I also want to make sure I'm giving you guys what you need. So I don't want to, go to basics for something that y'all obviously know how to schedule appointments. You know how to call the showing centers and make appointments. You know how to pull the MLS sheets and look at the showing instructions, stuff like this. I don't want to teach you guys that. So I'm kind of grateful that there's not a brand newbie on here, because I don't want to inundate you guys with that kind of garbage. One of the things that I do, let me go to my screen share real quick, because I do want to pull up my notes for this, just so you guys, there's a couple things that if you want to talk about golden nuggets that I think will help you guys, is couple like pro tips on here. You always want to check the hot sheet before you go out for a property tour that day. If you're not familiar with a hot sheet, it's in RealTracs under property search. And it's going to be down towards the bottom. And it's basically all properties that have had a status change within the last 48, 72 hours. Okay. So it's going to have brand new listings, coming soon, under contracts, and things that have sold or had a price change in the last 72 hours. So if you've planned a property tour for your buyers, and let's say you've already pulled all the listings that they've told you that they're interested in seeing, it would behoove you to pull a hot sheet just to see if there's something new that popped up on there since you guys ran listings or since you emailed them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
but Laura,
Go ahead.
okay, I was thinking that in this day and time, I think, are we making a plan for the COVID-19 of the future of open houses? I mean, are we working on a list like that? I think I am on
What
how
do
to
you,
proceed. Well,
what
I
do you
mean,
mean?
as far as I think we're going to be going through a new phase of what people consider an open house. I mean,
Right.
they're going to look at it like the house is empty in most cases, in my case, and when you do stage it and you plan it, what assurances are we able to give our clients that we're not going to infect their house with a bunch of people coming through
Sure.
and touching all their stuff? So I
Well,
don't know. I just kind of felt like that we were
no,
moving in that
I
direction.
definitely feel like some of the things that we're seeing as far as how we're conducting our business during this, I think they're not going to go away. I think that what's happening is, because we're all quarantined at home and so many people are at home, the demand to provide them access and information online is going to continue even when this pandemic is over. So having like really high quality virtual tours of your listing where they can actually walk through the floor plan using Matterport like Greg's doing is going to be really helpful. I think that's something that's going to stick around past the pandemic. People are going to want to see the floor plan, especially when they can't get out of their house and come see. Go ahead, Andrea.
Well, I was just going to add to that. If you look at a lot of the new construction builders, like they are offering video tours.
Right.
So rather than taking people through the house, they're going in and they're doing video tours of the houses.
Right.
Which I figured, something like that would happen. But I thought it was interesting. Now, some of these video tours are lacking. quite
Well,
a bit.
that's kind of my point, which is why I'm saying there's two different ways to do
Yeah.
things. You can certainly take your iPhone and do a walkthrough video of a house just to have a video, but you also could step up the production and have a Matterport where you're buying the equipment and you have the access to the program that turns it into a high quality professional virtual tour. Or you can pay, if you have a photographer that's actually still shooting virtual tours, you can pay for that. You're going to decide which end of that spectrum you're going to be on. I
Right.
personally am not, I don't love iPhone videos where you're going through and it's bouncing up and down, but something is better than nothing. If you really need to showcase, especially when people don't want to come out and traipse through houses, they're afraid. But I will be honest with you, the longer this lasts, as much as I would love for people to be afraid, I'll tell you, 30 some people traipsed through that house from Saturday, my listing that I put on, 30 some people traipsed through it between Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
I mean, it's insane to me.
Wow.
I expected us to have a bunch of offers from people who had not actually physically walked through the house. I expected people to have written the offer based on the virtual tour, but every offer we got, all 9, were people who walked through the house personally.
Wow. Wow.
And I think the longer this lasts, I think the more people are going to be coming out of their house, sadly. I just think people are getting like, a little stir crazy, and they're like, okay, well, we can go look at a house because that's still essential.
Mhm.
But I will tell you that I do think some of these things are going to stick around. Some of the things that we're providing virtually, the consumer is going to demand some of these things stick around even when the pandemic is over. Suzanne, as far as for your sellers, what kind of protections you can provide. I had 2 sellers put their house on the market literally last week. Both sellers, one didn't care because they were going to Florida, so they weren't going to be home when people came traipsing through their house, and they weren't concerned about exposure to virus because they're not there. The other one actually works in an assisted living facility, and she has to get her temperature taken every day when she goes to work, and still has to report to the center, and she has 4 teenagers at home. She was much more cautious. We discussed a plan about how we were going to handle showings, that I would provide Clorox wipes. She would wipe down the house after every show, or the kids would wipe down all the handles and everything after every showing. In the instructions, we made it clear, please don't touch, try not to open all the doors. A lot of the doors would be left open for you, so you don't have to touch the closet doors or the linen closets or whatever, or the pantry.
That's cool.
Those are left open. There's some people who are providing booties and gloves, and asking you to leave them in the trash can at the door or take them with you,
Yeah.
So there are some things you can do to protect your seller. The same thing on the buyer side. If you have a buyer who is still wanting to see a property during this, I would advise all of you to ask qualifying questions. I hate to ask this, but has anyone in your household had a fever in the last 48 hours?
Right.
Is anybody exhibiting any symptoms that would be concerning to me or my family? Don't be dismissive or worried about asking people these questions, because you need to know, if you're going to go show them a house, you need to know what you're doing. Just because you're deemed essential by somebody doesn't mean that you don't need to protect your own health and that of your family. So I would ask those questions. I also would tell you to wear a mask. Obviously, I would wear gloves and throw them away after the showing, each house, if you have enough gloves to do that. Definitely wash your hands when you get back. And then I would bring Clorox wipes with you just to open the door, close the doors, whatever you need to do personally. My photographer is still working, but he's not shooting houses if the people are there. Like, they have to leave the house. Because, typically the photographer and the homeowner and I are typically moving things from room to room, hiding things in the oven or whatever. I always tell people, don't turn on your oven if I've been at your house without checking to see what I've hidden in it, because I've always hidden stuff in the oven. So don't preheat the oven without opening it. But typically we're moving stuff and hiding it for the room, you know, for him to shoot that room, and then we'll bring some things back in that I just don't want in the photos. But he's not allowing any of the homeowners to be home when he's shooting. So those are just the kinds of precautions you guys are going to have to take, and you're going to have to decide for yourself whether or not it's worth it to you to continue to show property. And then I would just encourage you to ask qualifying questions and to take whatever precautions you need to protect yourselves and your client. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I'm more concerned about, like you were saying, setting up a buyer tour and checking the hot sheets, and I do all that. I've just learned
Yeah.
that I can show up at a house and they'll be all excited, and all of a sudden I hit the button and it's gone under contract.
Right.
But as far as the questions that we could kind of put together to interview agents that have showing or have homes that we want to show, you know, it seems like maybe we should just have a security portfolio together. Like, what are your precautions? And I don't know. It seems like we could list something and do our deliberately different thing.
I got
and
you.
Post something to make a statement about it.
I'll prepare that for
Like,
you.
we want to show your house, but this is what we are telling our buyers that we are doing for them,
right,
in the wake of a pandemic.
I did have some agents reach out to me and ask, you know, what are the rules that your sellers would like for us to follow? You know, what precautions are they asking us to take? I think, and I can prepare a list of questions. I'll post those for you today, of just some suggestions of things that I think you guys should ask if you do have a buyer who's looking to ask, or to look to show a house, so that you can ask the listing agent, or things that you can advise your clients to do. Okay.
That's why I love you.
That's why I love you too. In addition to checking the hot sheet, and I know you know this, Suzanne, because you've been doing this long enough, or a while enough to know, you know, don't only rely on the status in the MLS. Pick up the damn phone and call the listing agent and ask them, hey, is this still available? That is the biggest thing that I'll tell you. Most people, you know, you guys got to stop relying on text messages to communicate with these people. You got to stop relying on emails. Pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I want to show your house today at noon. I just want to verify that it's still available. Do you have any offers you've gotten so far? Is there anything I need to know that's not in the MLS? Can you share any information about the age of major systems? All the stuff that you guys would help you be a better prepared agent and look like a rock star to your clients, because you got some information on the front end and you started building a rapport with that agent on the front end. I'm sorry, you can't do that via text.
Yeah,
right.
It's convenient.
And I think but in this day and time, I think you can prep your buyer and let them show you their level of seriousness about that house, just in the precautions that you're willing to share with them from the other agent about that house. So, you know, I'm kind of running around with it, but it's still, the buyer can say, well, you know, I really didn't like the yard. I'm just, you know, maybe we should look at something else. And I'm not trying to dissuade them from looking at the house, but it does kind of bring their wants and needs up to a reality check, you know, because you've done the investigation to make that walkthrough worth it.
Well, I agree with you. I'm also putting the onus back on my buyer to do some of their due diligence before we make the appointment. That's the other part. I think that's what you're alluding to or talking about, really.
I am.
Is
Woo!
Yeah, in a roundabout way, right? But but the bottom line is that, like, you know, hey, have you looked at the Google map and looked at the aerial? Are you comfortable with the location? Have you checked out, you know, the virtual tour? Did you notice on, here's the property disclosure. Did you notice that they had a house fire? Is that going to be acceptable? Like, some of the due diligence stuff you can do on the front end, and not everything, you know, I get that, but there are some things that you can do that, especially if you know you have a very picky buyer. I don't need to traipse through some stranger's house and expose myself when you haven't really done any homework to make sure that this neighborhood is acceptable to you, or that this floor plan might work for you, or that you're okay with, you know, some of the updates that need to be done. don't be afraid to push that back on your buyer to make sure that they've done a little bit of research before they've made an appointment. A lot of people are order takers. A lot of agents today are order takers, which means you tell me which house you want to see. I'm going to drop everything I'm doing. I'm going to fly out the door, make an appointment, and I'm going to go show you this house. And we really haven't talked at all about what you want, what you need, what you're looking for. And I'm going to go show you 50 houses and run myself ragged because I'm afraid to make you do some homework. Don't be like that. That's a waste of your time. Because you're going to find that most of these people are going to make an appointment for a house that they really don't have interest in, or that they don't, that neighborhood's not acceptable, or the backyard's not acceptable, but they just want to look at the house. And when people are bored, guess what they're going to do? They're going to waste your time. So be protective of it. That's all I'm saying. Don't be afraid to push back on them. Okay?
Yep. That's good.
One of the other things on number 5, it says know your route, avoid backtracking, and plan the effective order. I use an app called Route for Me. It's a paid app. It's not free, but I love it because it will let you put in all the property addresses and you hit the optimize button and it will put them in order by what's the least amount of travel time, what's the most effective route based on what your starting location and returning location is, and it will tell you the travel time in between each property. So, when you're planning out your route, I don't know about you guys, but if let's say I have 7 houses to show, I know it takes me 20 minutes to get here. I'm also giving about 30 to 45 minutes per property. So it helps me identify how much time I need for each house. So when I'm making my appointments, if I'm doing this from 1 to 2, I can see that this one is 12 minutes away and that I might need to make the next one 2:30 to 3 or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's good.
I love it because it puts them in the right order. Good. Yeah. Like I
got
said,
it.
you do have to pay for it. It's not a free app. Yep. Which one?
The blue one or the orange one?
Hang on one second.
I hope it's the blue one because
Is that the one you did?
Yeah.
It's blue and it's got 3 arrows.
Arrows.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, I do know you have to pay for it. I know you may get a free one that'll do 1 or 2, but it'll also let you email that route to your clients. It'll let you email the route to whoever. So if you're maybe meeting a stranger you've never met, you may want someone to know what your plan is or something like that. So I like it. My whole thing is when I first got in the business, my car made a lot of U-turns. And we went backtracked all up and down. When I first moved to Tennessee too, I was showing a house out in damn Lebanon, like 4 houses out in the middle of freaking nowhere in Lebanon. And I went down that same freaking country road probably 13 times to show these 4 houses because I didn't know Lebanon that well and I didn't plan my route in advance. So my poor clients had to go up and down these damn cows 50 times and around these curves. So just be smarter, avoid backtracking, know your route. It also makes you look like you're familiar with the area if you don't make a lot of U-turns and turn the wrong way. And it'll help you plan out how much time you need in between each spot. So that's my other pro tip, number 2.
Cool.
Number 7, it says verify the access and ask about alarm codes. So if you've been in this business more than 5 minutes, you're going to set off some alarms because the listing agents don't provide that there's an alarm or what the code is to turn off the alarm. And if you're lucky like me, the police will even be called and they'll have some questions for you. That's happened to me in Goodlettsville 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
Where the agent never told me there was an alarm, that an alarm was set and that I needed a code, and nor did the showing center.
Oh my God.
So that's the other reason why I put it on here is because you need to just verify, hey, just want to verify there is no alarm that I need to be worried about. Because it's real fun when the cops show up and they take your business card and they call your office to verify that you actually work there.
You did that?
3 times.
Oh no.
Lord, I think being 65 is now becoming a benefit. I'm too scared to do anything like that.
I look really sketchy, let me tell you. I probably look like I'm trying to break into houses. I'm really scary. Very scary. All right.
It's too
So
funny.
number 8 says update your key card or use the mobile application. So raise your hand if you only use the app. No.
Yeah, I don't even have it yet.
All right. So
That's
we
today.
we
I
talked
use the
about that.
card.
All right. Well, if you're an old
I'm
school,
both.
that's
I
fine.
have the app though. I
If
do
you-
have the app.
Okay, which is fine. I just want to warn you guys because I think in 2021 they're doing away with the card altogether, which
Okay.
I think is going to be bad. If you're showing property out in College Grove or way out in very rural areas where the Bluetooth signal is not working, you have no way to
Right.
get in those Bluetooth boxes,
Mm-mm.
and your errors and omissions insurance doesn't cover combo lock boxes. So I don't know.
And well, I'm worrying about the quality of the Centra box. It seems like they're headed towards improving the models, which means we're going to end up all buying new Centra boxes.
Well, let's
What do you
hope that that's,
think?
I don't think that's going to happen for several years, but I do
Okay.
know that the key card is going away soon, and that means you're only going to be able to use the app. So if you don't have the app, when you get your card, Andrea, download the app, because you're not going to want to update that stupid card every 7 days.
I know. Thank
Okay.
God when I went to the office, Laura, I had just updated it.
Oh yeah. Well, you get one time you can do it over the phone. So if you
Yeah.
ever do have it expired, you can call the number on the back and update it over the phone. But the next time you'd have to put it in the key card reader in order to get in. So,
Right.
Oh my gosh.
and there is a key card updater at the office on the back computer. If you ever need to if you're out and about and your card is expired, you can always pop in and do that. But I hate that damn thing. I don't use the key card, so.
Well, it costs $25 to get your own updater
I
to
know.
plug into your,
Yeah.
and I have one, and I do it if I'm in a week of showings just for that backup.
Yep.
And believe it or not, when I'm in there having a conversation with my buyer on the front porch and I'm working my app and I'm doing all this stuff, I need another hand.
Yeah, I agree.
They end up holding my phone for me while I'm trying to negotiate the box.
Yep.
And it's also how the box is positioned on the rail.
On the damn door, on
And
the rail. Yep.
Hello. And so anyway, I found that if I'm talking and I'm in a serious conversation, I get that card, whip it in, hit, it's like, I love my card. I'm going to be sad when they're gone.
I know.
My card's like the voiceless wonder compared to dealing with an app. So.
Well, I always wear pants with a lot of pockets. One pocket, just so
That
you
might
know,
help.
I never wear a dress when I'm showing property, and I always make sure that my pants have pockets because I need one for my phone, one for my car key, and one for my business cards. Otherwise, and I don't carry purses, so I don't have a purse to lug around with all that crap in it. But I have had to hand my crap to my buyers and say, hey, can you hold this for a second? Just because I had so much in my hands. But anyway, that's my pro tip number 3 is always wear pants with lots of pockets.
That's smart.
Hey.
Yeah.
And then number 9, download all the listings that you're going to show or print sheets for you and your buyer. So I always print the agent copy for me, and I always print the buyer copy for the buyer. You can also print the property tour that is inside RealTrack. So let's say you select your listings. When you go over to the More button, I believe it's More. When you go to More, there's a special one that says Property Tour. That's going to give like neighborhood information, data, statistics. You can edit the property tour to include information about you. So let's say you have a relocation buyer, somebody from out of town. It's a very fancy presentation instead of just handing your people MLS sheets. Okay, so it's just another level. Remember, we got 2 ways to do things: the shaky iPhone or the professional produced video, right? The sheets, the property tour that you give, let me throw some MLS sheets at you versus the little notebook or property tour that has all the things. You guys know this because you've done it for more than 5 minutes. When you show more than 3 houses, they all start to run together.
True.
They don't remember this house had green carpet, this house had a 4-foot fence, this house had wallpaper in 2 of the bathrooms. So they need something to take notes on. They also need to write their feedback right after they show the house. So I always kind of give them a minute before we go to the next house and say, go ahead and write down your notes or your thoughts about things that you liked or didn't like, or things that are going to help you remember this house, because once you pass 3 houses, they do start to confuse themselves about which house had what. And I like it when it's fresh in their mind for them to write down, great backyard, needs new kitchen, loved the living room, but no dining, like the pros and cons of the house, right there while it's fresh in their mind. Okay. I always come prepared. I can't tell you how many times I have been last minute Lucy, where we're in multiple the house that they love is in multiple offers, and they want highest and best by 5 o'clock, and it's 3:30 when you're showing the house. And of course your buyer says, I want to write an offer. So I always come prepared, and I always have a buyer packet ready that has a blank contract in it, and I'll pull it right out at that countertop or on the hood of my car or at Starbucks and fill it out right then and there.
Right.
Because I'm old school. Ain't nothing wrong with a pen and a piece of paper. Right?
There you go.
So I just come prepared because I have it. If you're a laptop girl, bring your laptop with you everywhere. I have even gone back to the buyer's house and used their computer to write a contract before, just because time was of the essence and I didn't come prepared. So you got to do what you got to do to get it written in a timely manner. You also, guys, if it's taken you 2 hours to write a contract, then you got to get better about writing your contracts, because it should not take you 2 hours. You should have the template already in Transaction Desk with everything you need, and you should be able to fill that out start to finish within 30 minutes. If you're not, then we need to work on helping you get that faster. I almost dumped my coffee in my lap talking with my hands. But when your buyer, when time is of the essence and you have a short period of time, your buyer can't wait 3 hours for you to put an offer together to send to them for signatures. That's not fair.
Do we have like a contract to close person we could call if we were in a pinch?
To write the offer for you?
Yeah. I don't know.
Contract to close people don't write offers.
Okay. I'm fairly new at this.
I know. But here's the thing. Heather, at any time, you could practice, take any address that's in the MLS and fill out a contract and time yourself until you can get it.
I need to do that.
That's smart.
Because my problem is, like, I start thinking, it's been a minute since I closed on a house. And I'm forgetting, like, how to, you know what I mean?
But this is your skill. This is something like that is paramount to your business. You've got to know how to write contracts fast.
Yeah.
And I had someone show a house yesterday, that listing at 4:30, and they had a contract to me by 4:42.
Wow.
And the deadline was 5.
Impressed.
So
I'm impressed.
I'm not telling you should be able to do it in 5 minutes, but what I'm telling you is that I know it takes some of y'all 3 hours to write a contract, and that's too long, especially when your buyer is excited and they want to get the offer in as quickly as possible. They don't want to wait 3 hours for you to get your shit together.
No.
So you need to practice.
And can I add something here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The thing that I've started doing in Transaction Desk, is why I love Transaction Desk, is that I will go on and set my buyer up. If I'm going on a tour, I'll go ahead and put the vital information in, not the parcel number, or not the address, or not just the property in specific, but I'll get some signature lines in there, and I'll make sure they're in my contacts in Transaction Desk. So when I hit that button for a signature, they're already in there. And I go back later if it turns into a bust, or they went and bought a for sale by owner and cut me out of the deal. Yeah, all you have to do is hit delete.
All you have to do is delete them and burn their house down. That's right.
Oh, absolutely. And stalk their children in school.
I'm just kidding. But you are 100% right. There's a lot of things you can do to make the transaction go a lot faster in your paperwork.
Yeah.
Setting your people up as contacts, setting them up will save you so much time for every document you're trying to get them to sign. You don't have to drag boxes. You don't have to enter their email address every time. Put them in once and they're done. And then it's going to mirror them on every document. And it already knows where the signatures go. So I just want you to know you are a professional. This is your job. This is what you are great at. Your buyer should not have to wait on you to prepare documents. You should know them like the back of your hand. You should know what goes on what blank. You should know what documents you need. And you should be able to get that to them relatively quickly. and not have blanks all over it, and not know where things are, and not have half of the package in there. You should have a full package ready for them to go to sign. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've been very good about that, Laura. You set us up in transaction desk. You put all the documents there, kind of in default that we
If you
needed.
use the template, there's a listing template
Yeah.
and a buyer template. So if you use the template,
Yeah.
everything that's on the checklist is in the template. So I've kind of tried to make it as easy for you as I possibly could. The only thing that's missing is your earnest money.
Right. Isn't that in paperless pipeline though?
Both are there. Yes. It's in both places.
I felt like that was easier once I used that one.
It's a preference thing. Paperless pipeline irritates the shit out of some people, and some people prefer transaction desk. I want you to use whatever you're comfortable with. I just want you to be good at using it, and I don't want your people to have to wait on you.
Right.
Okay? Because your client is excited. They're waiting on your documents so they can come sign them, and 3 hours later, you're like, okay, I'm almost done. That's unacceptable if you ask me.
Yeah.
That's what they need you for, right?
Right.
All right. Let's see. Number 11 is one of my favorites. So it says knock and announce yourself loudly when you get to the property, right? So, I've walked in on people having sex. I've walked in on people in the shower. I've walked in on people doing drugs. I've walked in on naked people in the kitchen. I've walked in on just about anything and everything that you could possibly walk in on.
You've had such a great life.
I'll tell you what, like when people interview me or ask me like, hey, tell me a funny real estate story, I've got plenty to tell.
Time.
But I can never think of them in the moment when they ask me. I can never say, oh, let me tell you about this one time. But girl, I've got lists of them. So my buyers, every time I do this, they always say, well, is someone home? And I just say, well, I don't know, but just in case, I've walked in on some crazy stuff. So I always like to make sure I announce myself very loudly. And I always just say, hello, Laura Dahl, Music City Experts, because I'll be honest with you, it happens less because of the showing center. But for agents who schedule their own showings, you would be amazed how many people don't tell their seller that someone's coming.
Oh.
Is why I've walked in on so many people doing things I would rather not see because no one told them I was coming, even though the agent told me it was okay to show. I've also walked into the wrong house once. A house had the lockbox on it, and it had a sign from the same company. I just didn't pay attention to the house number, and I walked in, and its people were like, can we help you? And I'm like, oh, I'm here to show the house. I got it approved. It says 1 to 2. Okay. Well, it was the house next door that I was supposed to be in. So, always check the house number, make sure you're in the right house, especially if you've got 2 side by side. Anyway, number 12, I always keep the key in my pocket. I never leave it in the door. I never, ever leave it in the door. I never, ever put it back in the lockbox until I'm done showing. It always, which is why I wear things with pockets, it always goes in my front pocket. The other reason is because a lot of houses, the back door, you ever got locked out of a house? Raise your hand if you ever got locked out of a house.
Not yet.
So
that has happened.
I was showing my brother, who is the biggest butthole of America, and the only house that he liked is the one that he stepped out on the back deck and shut the door. And of course, it was the kind where the handle on the inside didn't show you that it was locked, but on the outside it did. And that was the only house that he liked that we got locked out of. And guess what? My car keys, my phone, my lockbox key were all inside the house on the dining room table. So I had to
I've done it.
I had to wait for the seller to come home.
It's some anxiety here right now.
Oh no! I almost came to tears.
Well, learn from my mistake. This is why I always keep the key in my pocket, because guess what? If the door locks, because I always lock the front door behind me too, by the way. Once I go inside the house, the key goes in my pocket and I lock the front door behind me. I've had people come in behind me when I was showing a house in a not so savory neighborhood just to see what I was doing and blah, blah, blah. And so I always lock the door behind me. Once we're inside the house, then I lock the door, put the key in my pocket. If you get locked out, you can just go back around. You got the key to let yourself back in, right? So that's why it goes in my pocket. Respect the showing instructions. I can't emphasize this enough. Sellers are very particular about their home, and they're in letting strangers come into their home and look at their personal belongings, because that's what people do. They're looking at your stuff. And you should respect whatever instructions they have. So if they ask you to remove your shoes, take your shoes off. If they ask you to turn off the lights, then turn off the lights. If they ask you to, wear a damn face mask during the COVID, then that's what you should be doing. But you need to respect whatever the instructions are, because those are instructions likely given by the seller. Don't lock the garage door. Well, if you do, they may not have a key and can't get in their house, right? So please try to follow those. Number 15 is be a consultant, not a salesperson. So nobody needs you to say, this is the dining room and this is the kitchen. Like Vanna White is done. She retired, right? So you don't need to, tell people what's obvious, but you do want to be a consultant, as in, these plantation shutters really add a lot of value. Those are really expensive. Or, hey, I noticed that there's crown molding in every room. Point out things to them that they may not notice or things that they may not recognize. I also do not give my opinion on the property until I know what they think.
Right.
And I've told this story before. I got fired once because I went to show this house, and it was the most ugliest house I'd ever seen in my entire life. It still is to this day, 21 years later. And of course, we had been looking at houses together for probably 3 weeks. I felt pretty comfortable with them. They asked me my opinion a lot when we looked at houses. And of course I said, oh my God, this house is awful. Right? Well, it was the only house they liked. They fired me and they bought that house from another agent and felt like I was not the person to represent them because I hated the house that they fell in love with. So lesson
those
learned.
are some shitty clients, I'm telling you right there. Damn shitty.
Well, you're going to have some. We have them all.
Oh yeah.
But lesson learned, I wait to give my opinion until I get feedback from them about what they think. I am honest though, and I will tell them, and I talked about this with somebody else earlier in the week or maybe on another call. I don't know. But, I'm going to be very honest with my people, because a year from now, there does happen. What happens if they get laid off and they call me back and say, can you help me sell this house? Well, if that house, when they bought it, was the most unique, weird floor plan, it's not very sellable. Nobody else wants it because it's so weird. That driveway is so steep that you might not care. The train in the backyard doesn't bother you because you're from Chicago, but it may be a problem if you call me a year from now and ask me to sell this house. I need to be able to sell it. And so I am always going to be honest with the buyer and protect and let them know I'm protecting your investment. I'll sell you whatever house you want to buy, but I'm not doing my job if I don't advise you about my concerns about the marketability of this house later. This floor plan is a little funky. I do think that the feedback is going to be a lot of focus on the driveway. The feedback is going to be the train noise is going to be an issue for some people. They need to know, because remember, they're emotionally buying, a lot of them. So they're not thinking about their future investment, about what could happen if they had to sell this house a year later or 2 years later, and how, while it may be perfect for them and their lovely family, it may not be perfect for everyone else. And if it's not perfect for the masses, then I may have a harder time selling it. And I'm going to be very honest with people if I show a house that I have those kinds of concerns with. And ultimately, it's their decision. But I'm going to be very frank with them and let them know. This driveway is going to be a problem later when we go to resell this house. When you call me back a year from now, that train that comes through the living room 5 times a day is probably going to be a problem. Right? I did have a client once that literally the train came through the backyard. Like on the other side of the fence was the train. And this buyer was like, I said, well, what about the train noise? Is that a concern for you? Because again, let's talk about the white elephant in the room. I don't want it to be a problem later. Let's talk about it now. So their response was, oh, I grew up in Chicago. I lived right under the L my whole life. I don't care. That train noise doesn't bother me at all. Well, that's nice. Do you think everyone has grown up under the L and doesn't have a problem with the train? Because that's the concern, is that it might not bother you, and that's great. And it might have cost me the sale, but the reality is that if he lost his job and I had to sell it, it was going to be a problem for somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to be honest with them. That's what I mean by being a consultant. I don't need to sell them on the house. The house is going to sell itself typically, but I am going to point out features that I think are important to them. I'm going to point out valuable things that I think they need to know. If I notice water damage, I'm going to point it out. If I notice, hey, there appears to be something, some moisture or whatever, I'm going to point out whatever I think they may not have seen. I do provide the fun facts. Literally when I walk in the door, before we all let loose and you go looking around, I always give what I call the fun facts of the house. So, because again, they have all the sheets in front of them, but they're not reading and memorizing the sheets. So I literally just say, this one is listed at $359. It's 2,400 square feet. It's 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and it was built in 1996. And the HO, go ahead.
Would you tell them how long it's been on the market, Laura?
Only if I think it's insane. Like if I think the days on the market are super high, okay, I'll probably mention like, oh, this one's been on the market for 117 days. Then I'd probably point that out. But I'm really only pointing out fun facts that I think they just may want to know as they're walking around looking at the house. Because if you're looking at 7 houses, they all, like I said, start to run together, and they don't remember from their house and their living room what the square footage and the price was of each house that they've asked to see.
Right.
Okay. I do provide anything that I think is that was disclosed on the property disclosure, or anything known about the neighborhood. So again, if we're in McKay's Mill, I want to make sure you're aware there's an Olympic-sized pool, clubhouse, a tennis court, a basketball court, 3 walking trails. The HOA dues are X number of dollars a month, right? Or, hey, by the way, I looked at the disclosure on this property before we made the appointment. They had a flood in blah, 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 or they had a fire in blah, blah, blah. I'm just pointing out to them what was on the disclosure. Because again, I want myself to be the source of something about the property, and typically the property disclosure is not available for the consumer, right? So I kind of want to hold on to that so that I can be the deliverer of, this is something they need me for. I don't want to just email them all the property disclosures. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I want to be the one who holds it, because I want to be the valuable person who provides that information, instead of just emailing all the disclosures to them. Okay. Don't rush them, but guide them along. So inevitably, you're going to have clients that, they're very particular. They want a certain type of backyard or a certain type of kitchen. They literally can walk in the house, go right to the kitchen or the backyard, and they know whether or not it's even worth looking at the rest of the house, right? Mm-hmm. But these little buttheads want to look at every room in the house, even though they know this house is never going to work for them, right? And let's spend an hour talking about why this house isn't going to work for them. Really, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I don't need to spend an hour in this house for you to tell me why it doesn't work, right? So this is what I mean by guide them along. You have a set appointment time, and you have a schedule typically that if you stay in a house too long, it's going to make you late for the rest of your appointments. So you kind of just need to, if they know this isn't going to work for me, then sometimes I'll tell them, hey, we know this one doesn't work. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one, right? Because you will have that person who, even though they know they're never going to buy this house, they still want to look at every room and comment on every room. And I'm sorry, I've got a schedule to keep. I have 9 more houses to show, and I'm not trying to be here till 10 o'clock. Okay? That's just me. I'm just telling you, you just need to guide them. Sometimes, you've only allotted for 20 minutes and you find out that your buyer is the kind that wants to spend an hour at each house. You're going to have to kind of move them along a little faster. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Keep an eye out for video cameras and microphones, right? Recording devices. If you see Nest cameras, you know, the black or white Nest cameras, those do record video and audio. You know, our new disclosures on our buyer broker agreements and everything, they all have the warnings to the buyers that sellers could be using recording and audio video recording devices in their houses. I always tell my buyers, let's not discuss anything pertinent related to anything that could hurt your negotiation or even your opinion of the house until we get outside of the house and in the car or outside of the house. Because I have had sellers use whatever they saw on the camera during our showing against us for the negotiations. Where my buyers have said, I would pay $425 for this, and the list price is only $415. They've already given away their cards to the seller, right? Or where I had an angry agent, I've told you guys this story probably before, but I had an angry agent call me and tell me, your buyers owe my seller an apology. And my sellers are furious. And I said, what for? Well, they overheard you guys while you were talking in the house, and your clients made some very ugly remarks about their furnishings and about their decorating style. Your seller shouldn't have been listening to my damn client. They had an expectation of privacy while they looked through the house too, right? So I just want you to warn your clients. I do want you to keep your eyes open for video cameras, and make sure that you're letting your clients know that they have a right, the seller has a right to have cameras on in their house, and that they should keep their comments to themselves till you get out of the house, or not say anything that could damage their negotiations. Okay. Number 20 is really important. It says to ask qualifying questions. Qualifying questions are like, what would you change to this house to make this home? Or what would you do with your furniture? On a scale of 1 to 7, how would you rate the property? To me, these are all important in gauging your client's interest without saying, are you ready to write an offer, right? It's getting valuable feedback to help you so that you can help understand where they are in the scale of being ready to write an offer. So, you know, what would you do with your furniture is a psychological sales tactic, which is tell me what you do with your furniture in here. Once people start to begin placing their furniture, they can start visualizing themselves in that home, right?
Right.
So it's an important question to ask. If you can get people placing their furniture, it's getting them to consider how they could live in the house. On a scale of 1 to 7, how would you rate this property? If you give a 1 to 10, you're going to get people who are in the middle on a 5. 5 doesn't tell you anything, right? But a 1 to 7 is going to be a shorter scale that says, on a scale of 1 to 7, where's this house? That helps me gauge what they like and what they don't like. Okay. I told you about 21, encourage your buyers to make notes along the way. I like to give the homes nicknames like the green carpet house, or the shiplap dining room, or the awful kitty house. I've had some that are like, you know, just, they are very creative. Have them come up with a nickname that they like that'll help them remember the house later. I do ask you guys to leave a card on the counter. You should have just some throwaway cards. Remember, our cards are kind of expensive. You know how protective I am of our cards because they're like $1 a piece. But you want some just showing cards. You can get some rectangular ones from Vistaprint, or leave your cards. But I like to let the seller know that I've been there. I've had people all the time where I run out of cards on showing days. And of course, the other agents calling me, did you even go show the house? The seller said there's not a card. So you should leave a card just to let them know you've been there. I will tell you too that I have left cards before, and the seller ends up firing their listing agent and calls me to list their house. So
Wow.
I would leave a card if I were you. But our cards are badass, so that's why I would say leave a card. Okay. Number 23, leave the house just like you found it. Lock all the exterior doors. Never lock the entry door from the garage unless they tell you to specifically. Turn all the lights off. Now, I never go through and turn off all the lamp lights. So every light in the house is on for your showing. They ask you to turn the lights off. I'm always going to turn off the main lights in the room, but I'm not going to go around and turn off every lamp light that's on in the house. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not doing all that. But I will turn off all the lights that I turned on, but I'm going to leave the house exactly like I found it and follow whatever instructions they left me. Okay. A lot of times they don't want you to turn all the lights off because they have 9 other showings that day and they've left all the lights on purpose the way they want it. Okay. So I just follow the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
24, provide feedback to the listing agent. So if you are both a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, you know how frustrating it is when you have a listing and you have showings and you can't get showing agents to give you feedback. So when I am representing buyers and someone asks me for feedback, I'm going to provide the feedback because I know how frustrating it is when you have a seller who wants to know what your buyers thought. I am gentle with my feedback. I'm a little bit conservative on what I say in my feedback. So let's say you walk into a house that smells like cat pee, you know, the whole house needs to be painted. It doesn't show well. There's dishes in the sink. There's towels on the floor. I might write in that feedback that the home really wasn't in showing condition when we arrived there. Instead of saying smells like pee, dishes in the sink, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like the reason
I know. I tell them it all.
and I get it. It depends on the situation, I'll tell you. But the reason I'm a little bit more gentle is because a lot of agents have it set up to where the feedback automatically goes to the seller.
Right.
Oh.
And it's not filtered by the agent. And I don't want to be perceived as an ugly agent.
You're right.
And I want to just choose my words carefully because they know I showed it. When they get a showing request, it has my name. So
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of agents that don't filter the feedback. So I'm going to be just a little bit more gentler in the words that I use because I want the seller to perceive my professionalism in my feedback as well, which is I really just don't feel like the house was in showing condition. I think there's some updates that need to be done. I think there's some things that could be done instead of saying your house smells like cat piss and you're dirty, you know, like figure out there's just a gentler way to say things. And there's a reason why. I promise you, I am not a saint. I'm not an angel. I promise you that I want to say exactly what I think, but I have learned the hard way that sometimes can bite you in the ass. And so I'm always going to filter it because I don't want the seller to see it in that raw form that I would say it to my agent friend, but I wouldn't say it directly to a seller's face that way. Right?
Yeah.
So that's pro tip number 4. And then number 25, what do you do when you make an appointment and the buyer does not want to go in? You pull up to the curb and they say, we don't have to go see this one. What do you do?
I would call the showing company.
Yeah.
And cancel it.
Right.
And also possibly the listing agent and tell them, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to waste their time, but my buyer, you know, just chose not to go into that one.
Right. So I hear that. I'll tell you what Laura Dahl would do. Laura Dahl's going to go in anyway. And if my client wants to sit outside, they can. But it'll just take me 5 minutes because, again, it takes me 5 minutes to go through a house, right? It'll take me 5 minutes. The reason is because I know that seller more than likely cleaned. They, you know, straightened up the house. They had to get their kids and their dogs out, you know, all of that stuff. And even if I go through, maybe it's one I can keep in mind for another client, right?
Right.
But I have not canceled the showing. I've not disappointed the seller. And I have at least honored the appointment that we made. Now, if you are doing work on the front end and your client is doing their due diligence and they looked at the neighborhood first, they drove through the neighborhood first, or they even looked at Google Photos or anything, you wouldn't have even made that appointment to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it happens to us, and I get it. We pull up and they go, oh, God, no, I'm not going in. Well, I'm still going to go in, but I'm going to roll through in 5 minutes and leave my card and honor the appointment. And then my feedback is just going to say, unfortunately, this wasn't a good fit for my buyer, but I did go through it, and I'll keep it in mind for someone else.
What would you do,
Yeah.
Laura? I had this little Asian lady that and she didn't speak a lot of English, and I had set up some homes, and she and her sister, we went to a couple, and then the last one they're like, oh no, we don't want that one. And so I just called and I apologized. I did what I said. I called the listing agent, I called the showing company.
Yep.
And is that okay? I didn't go ahead and go look because
That's fine. I'm just telling you what I would do. You don't have to do everything how I would do it. I'm just giving you my advice.
Okay, so make them sit in my car and just say, no, we have to go to that, or?
Well, I've done it before. Like, hey, I don't mind that you don't want to go in, that this isn't a good fit, but I'm going to go ahead and go in and preview it in case I have another buyer it might work for.
Okay.
You're welcome to stay in the car, or you're welcome to come in, or, whatever. But
okay, because I was driving them around. And
I get that, but I don't mind leaving them in my car. It'll just take me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. Right.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'm always going to give you advice about what I would do. It's your business. You do whatever you want. I'm just telling you my reasons are because I know what it's like as a seller. If you've ever had to sell your house with young children in it and somebody makes an appointment to show your house and then they don't show up, you want to kill that agent that didn't show up, like literally go to her house and burn her house down. So I don't want to be that person. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep talking about burning people's houses down. Clearly I need to get out of the house. But I know how frustrating it is. And I also feel like if people had done some research on the front end, they wouldn't have bothered us and made an appointment. So I feel like I owed it to the seller to at least go in and preview it. But that's just me. No, I'm not saying everybody would do that. I'm just trying to give you some advice about, try to be a little gentle. Like, I know we all represent buyers, and, I'm very opinionated, I'm very headstrong, and I have a strong personality, but I do try to be considerate of other people in this whole process. And we are disrupting sellers' lives when we're showing their property. Asking them to keep their house in showing condition is very difficult when you have children and pets, and maybe even a sick person at home or whatever it is. And so I just try to be considerate of what would I want to happen if it were me and if it were my seller. So I'm just going to give you that advice to put yourself in those sellers' shoes.
That's good.
And how would you want that to be handled? Okay.
Right.
All right. Questions about anything that we covered, or anything that I can add my 2 cents about situations that have come up? Here's a good one. What do you do if you make an appointment for 1 o'clock, you show up at 1 o'clock and there's already somebody there showing?
I mean, technically you can go in, but I would maybe give them 5 minutes.
All right. So here's the Laura Dahl answer, which is there are a lot of agents who allow overlapping showings, which is totally fine. You are allowed to do that. But if it's me and I pull up to the house and someone's already inside, I'm going to knock on the door. I'm not going to barge in the house, right? I'm going to knock on the door and I'm going to say, we also have an appointment at 1 o'clock. Would you prefer us to wait outside, or are you okay with us coming in?
That's it. That's how you do it.
That's professional and it's courteous. Yep. I do not appreciate it.
And that's how you do it.
That's how you should be working your business, professional and courteous. I do not appreciate it if I'm inside the house showing a house and somebody barges up in the house while my clients are looking. They take over the showing. They've made my client uncomfortable because now my client feels like they have to get out faster because the agent allowed an overlapping showing. And I have asked people, I realize and recognize that you have an appointment at the same time. Unfortunately, we were here first. And if you don't mind, I would appreciate if you guys would wait out on the porch until we're done, or in your car.
Well, if you lock the door and you have the only key to get in,
they're
not going to be able to get in either.
That's right.
Anyway.
That's right. Good point. And the other thing I will tell you is that I've had people, this is the other advice I want to give you, is that if you open up the lockbox and you have the key in your hand and you are getting ready to leave and someone else is coming, do not hand that key to that person. You put it back in the lockbox and you make them open the box themselves. You do not want to assume. I've had agents cuss me up and down because I made them open the lockbox back up. But
Yeah.
listen, I'm not taking responsibility and liability because I am actually responsible for whatever happened in that house. And
Yeah.
that agent needs to have a record of who you are and what time you open the
Well,
box.
and that's just common sense. If they're stupid enough to think you're going to hand over a key, then maybe they need to rethink their career.
Girl, it happens all the
It really
time.
does. And
Because they're
and they
too
make
lazy.
it well, they look at you like it's professional courtesy.
Yeah.
It's not.
Never.
It's breaking
No,
the
it's
law. I
Well,
mean,
I don't
real
know
estate
you.
Well,
standard.
and
Right.
you know, and we don't own that house
That's right.
that we just showed.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is someone else's home. I'm responsible for the time that I scheduled for it.
That's
So,
right.
Yep.
you know,
Yeah, I 100%
Right.
agree. And I'll just tell you, I will just tell them very frankly, I'm very sorry, but you're going to have to put your key in and get it back out because they need a record of when you opened and closed the lockbox.
And honest to God, they should know that. Like,
Girl, I have almost come to blows with girls on the porch over this stupid key. And that's just because they're too damn lazy to go open it themselves. And I don't know you. I don't know that your appointment was approved.
right?
I don't know that you're even
I
a
don't even know
realtor.
they're a real estate agent.
Exactly. I don't
Right?
know. So I'm
Yeah.
not giving you the key. And I don't care. You can fight me for it. Good luck.
Oh my God.
Well,
Apparently,
and again, I think, it's the bully mentality that is really the thing that I'm trying to really cultivate a relationship with my clients. Like, I am not a bully.
yeah,
I'll stand up for you all day long.
sure.
But if you think I'm going to go railroad somebody to
Yeah.
get your way, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
No.
right.
And
Because we still have to
I've
work with
had to
people.
say it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
just it.
it's-
I had to
it's-
explain that last night to my sellers. The 7 people or 8 people whose offers didn't get accepted last night, those are still my friends. Those are still people
Right.
I have to work with. They're people that I have an obligation to treat them fairly and honestly. And that while you don't care, I do about how we handle things. So
Right.
it's the same thing with when you ask the person to wait out on the porch or to wait in their car until you're finished. Your clients, they need you to protect their showing time too. They need you to look out for their best interests. And if you're afraid to ask another agent to stand out on the porch and wait, or to wait in their car, or to give you just a few more minutes while you wrap up, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be a great negotiator for your people.
Right.
If you're afraid to ask for something like that, what else are you afraid to ask for and to advocate for your people for? At the very minimum, advocate for them to look at the house unencumbered.
Well, it also looks bad on you if you can't stand up for the appointment that you
That's right.
made.
That's right.
You know? I mean,
Yeah.
and as a client, if the client is watching how you handle that and you handle it poorly, they might look at
Yeah.
finding somebody else to represent them.
Yeah. I have had,
Because you don't reflect their values.
Right.
That's the main thing. Are you
You got it.
reflecting your client's values?
That's good.
Are they
Yep.
reflecting yours?
yeah. And
I mean,
sometimes
it's a
they
two-way
don't.
street.
Sorry, sometimes
No,
they
I
don't.
can.
So,
I know.
but I
Yeah.
will tell you that I have had clients where I did not protect them, like where I let somebody come in without asking my client, do you mind? I just said, sure, come on in. We don't mind. And my client was actually very upset that I let somebody
Yeah.
come in without asking them first. So I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So I'm just trying to teach y'all the ways to do things the easier way without learning them the hard way like I had to, because that's how I've done everything in my life, is learn it the hard way. But if I can save you guys a couple missteps, is just be courteous with the people, be professional, advocate for your clients. But, I think at the end of the day, you really just need to be respectful of your clients' wishes and what you think is best for their experience. You got to remember, every minute that they spend with you is part of this overall experience, right? So if you let people barge up into the house without even asking your client, if you let your client go walking around the house without asking questions or without providing information, if you let them drive in their own car and you never, like, you're missing that window of which is fine. I'm fine with you driving in your own cars, especially now. But like when this didn't happen, like when we weren't in this middle of this pandemic, you know, riding in your own car, you're missing out on opportunities to talk to them.
Absolutely.
To
I
get
agree.
to know them, to build rapport. And I get it that some people don't want them in their car.
Yeah. Well, and I think so coming from new construction, I saw a lot of agents pull up in their car and then the client would pull up in a separate vehicle.
Sure.
And whenever I would show one of our houses, I always put everyone in my car.
Sure.
You know, because, and sometimes the agent would be like, oh, we can ride separate. The only time we would ever take multiple vehicles is if there were 10 people.
Too many. Yeah.
And, but I always wanted to use that as an opportunity to talk about the neighborhood and the homes and the builder. And, you know, so I can imagine that I would still do the same thing. Obviously, you know, most of us on your team, I think, Laura, are women, and you have to, you know, think of safety.
Sure.
So I don't know what other people do as a safety precaution or safety measure before you put people in your car that are total strangers.
Well, if you have a buyer consultation first, then you're not meeting a stranger, right? But people don't operate that way, you know?
Well, but I tell you, having the bigger office, Laura, has changed I'm so excited to invite him to the office. So I've already done one presentation there.
Good.
And I just loved it.
Yeah.
It felt more comfortable, and I don't mind sitting in Starbucks. I don't mind, you know, going to Panera and having lunch and talking to someone about, you know, what they're looking for in a house. But having that home office, you know, working from home, I'm still to this day, unless I've, you know, partied in the backyard with them, they're not coming to my house. You know, I just have a thing about it. Plus, I don't want them to meet David. I mean, he could come across like a real, you know, pirate.
We love David. We love him. But but you know what?
Like, here, can I give you $1,000 to help you in your search? I mean, you know, he's just like the all giving one. And
I think coming to the office, though, it establishes a level of professionalism on the front end. It's setting expectations for how you guys are going to work together. It 100% like levels the playing field of where you get the opportunity to be the expert and to establish what your role and your value is. And I believe personally that does not happen the same way in Starbucks, Panera, whatever, even though that's what people do. And I get it. And I know people just want to meet you at the house. I'm just trying to advise you that taking that time away from them where you get to learn about their family, you get to learn about what they like and don't like in their relationship, and all that stuff is a very valuable part of building the relationship that's going to last you over 5, 10, 15 years with this client. I learned things in relocation. I learned things about the couples that I was helping that still to this day, I value about things that I think helped me be a better agent for them. I knew who the decision maker was. I knew how they bounced things off of each other. I knew what the worries and concerns were for the man versus what the worries were for the wife. You know, I knew what kind of things the wife was looking for in the property that were very different than the husband. And why? Because we spent so much time together traveling to and from the houses and talking, and I got to ask lots of questions about them personally and got to get to know them. When you just show up at a house, you show them the house and they want to bounce. They want to leave. And you don't get the opportunity to really get to know them in a way that I think builds meaningful relationships over a long period of time. So I'm not saying throw everybody in your car, but I'm just telling you, when you remove that part of the showing experience, you're moving that part of the experience for you too, which means you don't get a chance to get to know them on the same level that you would if you were driving them around and being the tour guide and pointing out landmarks or things that are amazing or restaurants that you love in Nolensville or whatever it is, wherever you are. You're going to have to find another way. If you're not going to drive people around, then you're going to have to find another way to build that rapport with them to make up for it, because you're not going to keep those people hostage in one house for an hour trying to learn everything you want. Know what I mean?
My gift for my client at closing usually comes from that moment in the car
Yes.
or in a personal setting, I find out something about them that's unique.
Yep.
And that's when I try to give them the gift, give them the memory, and
Yep.
that's best you can do.
And that's exactly what I mean by getting to know your people on a level that's a little deeper, and that only comes from spending time with them, right? The more time you spend with them and getting to know them, the more personal you can make that relationship, whether that's in the closing gift, or if that's even how you negotiate on their behalf, or if that's even how you relate to them when you're trying to talk to them about what to do. Again, knowing what the push buttons are for the husband and what the word like concerns are for the wife help me as a salesperson be able to ease both of their minds, psychologically be able to calm their fears, be able to address the concerns they have about a particular house that they may be blowing out of proportion or that they may need your help and guidance in. But you don't get that in one house by rolling through the kitchen and the dining room with them and then letting them go look upstairs by themselves. So that's just my advice to you. Is that's the last pro tip I have is don't be so afraid to put people in your car and get to know them. Okay.
Yep.
So I hope this was helpful for you. I enjoyed it, even though I know your guys are experienced. I hope you took away some nuggets that will help you be better agents and have better experiences for your buyers that are going to separate you from the rest of the people. Okay.
It's great, Laura.
Thank you.
All
Can
right.
you
Thanks.
email are
This
you
sheet? Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll send it to you.
great.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I didn't brush my teeth today. I think I'm going to go brush my teeth.
Well, none of us can smell your breath from here, and we
Thank
can't
God.
tell.
But this hair thing ain't like that. I mean, this is all
Listen,
bed fresh.
I went to the grocery store when I haven't washed my hair and I have it pulled up, it gets all frayed like that, right? I went to the grocery store and you can see I don't have any makeup on, but I had a mask on.
You're so pretty.
And oh my gosh, no. So just imagine it's up and hair's going everywhere and I have a mask on. And I really and truly, I think people thought something was wrong with me. Because I was seriously looking pretty frazzled and I didn't care. I really didn't give a flat rat's ass because I just wanted to get my groceries done and get the
Don't get
get out that
infected
door.
and yeah.
Exactly. I went into UPS to pick up my printing, and I know the owner really well, and he's like, it took me a second, Heather, because I had my
Little mask on, and
I had my sunglasses on.
you look like you're gonna rob the place. Yeah, good job.
Well, and listen, beware. We've got people in the neighborhood that are actually, people are blatantly walking in and robbing people because of this stage we're at. Yeah, they're being very blatant, and home invasions in Creve Hall. There've been 2 in the last week, and it's just like middle of the day. They just get out of the car and walk straight into the house. And
you guys got to remember that when we're in a time like this where, idle minds are idle hands, like where people have nothing to do, where they're bored, that's when they start to become very creative about things to do to entertain themselves. And that's when crimes typically are on the rise, when there's nothing else to do and nowhere to go. So they become much more creative. And kids are out of school, and I hate to tell you, but teenagers who have nothing to do tend to get in trouble. So just be on the lookout, stay healthy, stay positive. Whatever you do, stay focused on what it is that you need to do, and go out there and get it. Okay.
I love I want to say, I love your little Tennessee thing behind you. No,
it's got to be Suzanne.
Suzanne.
Yeah, she's a Balls fan.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm forever. I was going to show you my backyard real quick.
Oh, please.
Oh, yeah.
I wore a shirt today that says, I washed my hands.
I love
by the way.
Anyway,
I love
there's the pool.
Oh my gosh.
And I've got a tiki hut bar.
Wow.
And Dave and I, we started planting plants, but we're going to bring in a few things that we set out in the yard. There's Bailey. But I found out I have a fox in the backyard. He's walked around and just stood out on the wall, and I kind of waved at him once. I thought maybe he saw me.
That's so pretty.
So yeah, it was really cool. And that's what you have to do. Is take the good out of all this and
Yes.
build a
That's
dream, a memory.
I've been, that book I shared, The Magic, it tells you to write 10 things you're grateful for every day. So I've been doing that this month.
Good. That'll
And-
help with your mindset a lot. I
Yes.
promise you. So
It does.
Brene Brown, if you
Brene.
haven't heard her.
I love her.
Brene, I've done it twice already.
that's all right.
Brene Brown is absolutely been very inspiring to me, and I've been listening to being vulnerable and having courage. And and Dave and I just had a great conversation about an hour before this started. And I told him, I said, this is our test. This is where, we need to be vulnerable and just know that it takes courage.
Yeah.
And,
You're giving me goosebumps.
Well, I promised I wouldn't divorce him. That was the shittiest. I should have never said that.
Suzanne, honey,
I'm just trying to get along.
Don't divorce him. Don't divorce him.
it's
I'm
too
not.
late. It's too late to train a new one. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
It's-
don't
It's
divorce
true. It's so true.
Yeah. No.
Everyone thinks divorce is the answer, and I'll tell you, if you have the opportunity to make it work, don't do it. So
Absolutely. That is
anyway.
a good lesson learned.
So I love you all. I hope you guys have a great day. Stay happy and healthy and stay positive. And I enjoyed our time together. So thanks for being here. Okay.
Thank you.
Love you too, Laura.
Thank you, Rock
Love you guys.
Ladies.
See ya.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.